extreme amount. Make sure that sometimes if you see it often or sometime, that's more likely to be the correct answer. Okay, so look for the wording when you're taking multiple choice tests, because always and never are usually very extreme, which makes it hard for them to be correct a lot of the times. And then all of the above or none of the above, remember, if you see a question when you're reading them, like they're saying all of the above, but you see one and you're like, oh, they might all be the right answers, but one of them does not seem like it, don't click all of the above then. If one does not go with it, don't just circle those, because that doesn't mean they're always going to be right, okay? Because a lot of the times I see kids who will just circle those. Make sure to make sure all 3 of those, if there's 4 of them, that they're all correct or not correct. You understand? And short answer. This is when you need to study it, because a lot of the times the teachers will tell you keywords, and this is when flashcards would be good. Key terms, dates, concepts. Make sure whatever your teacher talks about in class that you study for it. And don't leave an answer blank, right? So let's say there's a short answer question and you have no idea what they're talking about. Write down what you're thinking, because then you'll at least get partial credit. Okay, don't leave it blank. So partial credit you will still get if you make, obviously though, if the question's completely off and it's talking about why is the sky blue and you're talking about why is an apple red, you're obviously not going to get points. But try to write down what your thoughts are on it, because you get partial credit. If you don't know an answer about it, come back to it later. Don't stress about it, come back. Read the question carefully, it's the big one with a lot of students. A lot of the time, the questions have parts in it, like where there's like 3 questions in one. Make sure you answer all of them to get the correct points, which I'll show you in a bit. And then ask for clarification if you guys do not know what they're talking about. It's not bad, you're not gonna get in trouble for clarifying with the teacher, okay? So what we're gonna do is, I'm gonna take this off. I'm gonna show you, we're gonna read this one as a group together. Can you see that? Okay. It's a reading comprehension, and we're gonna go through it. These already kid wrote on it. You're not writing on these in general, so it just already has to be answered. So we are gonna go over this together as a class, and we're gonna read them and answer a few questions together. I'm gonna answer a couple by myself first to show you what you would do if I was taking the test, and then I'm gonna have you guys answer them with me, okay? So I'm gonna read it, so make sure you listen to this, because I'm going to ask you guys eventually what you think the answers are, okay? So it's about food trucks. So a new trend is taking hold of American cities. Gourmet food trucks serving everything from fresh fish tacos to red velvet cupcakes. These trucks can be set up for specific events or moved from place to place throughout the day. A food truck might be stationed downtown for the lunch crowd or near an outdoor mall after lunch to lure in shoppers. Diners can even track the whereabouts of food trucks over the internet. These brightly painted trucks are quickly becoming a familiar sight on street corners. Yet, the idea of selling food out of a truck is nothing new. As far back as the 1800s, people sold food on the streets from carts. Sausages, pretzels, and hot dogs have been staple street foods for a century. So what is different about these new food trucks? The type of food being sold. Instead of just a hot dog or a muffin, this food is more upscale, something you might find in a sit-down restaurant. There are also incredible choices. You can eat Chinese dumplings, Greek falafel, or Korean barbecue right there on the street. The trend is spreading from larger cities like Los Angeles to smaller cities around the country. Not everyone is pleased about this. Restaurant owners may not like competition that appears suddenly across the street if it offers lower prices due to low overhead costs. City officials tend to defend the interests of traditional restaurant owners, and they also express concerns about congestion and safety. Cities require food trucks to hold permits, often limiting the number of permits handed out. Some cities even have a ban on truck operators cooking in their vehicles. Despite opposition from restaurant owners and city governments, the food truck momentum shows no sign of slowing. Many people view operating a food truck as less risky than opening a restaurant. It's also a way for people interested in the food industry to be their own boss. With so many incentives for work for food truck owners and so many eager customers in line, it is hard to see what will put the brakes on food trucks. Okay, so I'm going to answer a multiple choice question and show you how I would do it, and then we're going to do one together, okay? So the first one is based on information in this passage. It can be understood that some people choose to dine at food trucks because of the what. So before I even look at this, I'm going to cover and be like, okay, why would people want to dine at food trucks? Well, I would say variety of food. There's a bunch of fun food that they have there, okay? I'm going to look. There's 3 options: quality of food, variety of food, or convenience of location. Okay, because I already thought variety of food, I'm going to assume that's correct. But I'm going to double check that there's no other answers because it says I can pick all 3 if I wanted to. So what you have to do, instead of just circling and assuming, you have to go back in and look for evidence in there. Okay, that's a big thing. You have to look for evidence. So when I looked in here, I see that they're talking about how they move places, which is convenient because they're all over the place. So that is convenience of location. So that's one of them that's up there. Variety of food, they talk about you can eat Chinese dumplings, Korean barbecue. That's a variety of food, right? And then I found in there is that this food is more upscale, something you might find in a sit-down restaurant, which basically they said that it's quality of food also. So I look down here, it gives me options to pick each one or choose them together all. I'm going to circle D because it shows them all. So that's where you go back and you look for evidence. Covering it up like I did also helps because then I already knew there's already one answer in there because I remember it, okay? So let's do one together. So see if you guys can give an example of this. Okay, so this one, because this is another hard one, because there's going to be like awkwardly 3 of them. Let me see. I can escape this. Okay, there's one in here. If you look at number 5, according to the author, some restaurant owners are opposed to food trucks because they are concerned about what? Okay, we're gonna look together. You can think about what the answer could be on your own before you look at these, right? I'm not gonna have it up here because I can't show it, but you have an option between competition, congestion, and safety. You look at your paper, you can pick competition by itself, competition and congestion together, congestion and safety together, or all 3. Which one do you think it is?
Competition.
Why do you think it's competition? Where do you find that? It's the most frequent one. Where I want you to look though, go back in the paper, because this makes sure that you get it 100% right. I believe you're right, but I want to know where you find that they talk about restaurant owners are opposed to food trucks because they are concerned about what?
I think it's all 3.
I want you to tell me why.
Because it says restaurant owners may not like competition that appears suddenly across the street and offers lower prices due to low overhead costs. That and city officials tend to defend the interests of traditional restaurant owners, and they also express concerns about congestion and safety.
So when you look at those 2 sentences, so where does it say? You read 2 different things, but look at the second sentence. Who were they talking about in that second sentence you read?
Safety officials?
City officials. What are they asking in this question?
Restaurant owners.
See?
So it's just competition then.
Right, because that is what I'm talking about, is when you're reading the questions, make sure that you read them carefully, because a lot of students would have done the same thing. They would have assumed, oh, it's all 3, but that's where they kind of trick you. So you need to make sure that you double check who they're talking about. Okay? So another thing when we're talking about this is there's gonna be vocab at these, right? Sometimes. So who thinks they know? There's a question about vocab. It's about upscale. So let's look at that one real quick. In paragraph 2, the word upscale most nearly means what? So before you look at the questions in your head, do you think you know what upscale means?
Mm-hmm.
What do you think upscale means?
Essentially, it means an upgrade.
Okay, so an upgrade.
Like something better.
Okay, so when we have 4 options: expensive, fancy, exciting, or delicious.
Mm-hmm.
If you had to pick through those, what would you think is the answer? Because in the question they're saying, so what is the difference? The type of food being sold, instead of just a hot dog or muffin, the food is more upscale. Something you might find in a sit-down restaurant.
Probably fancy.
Yeah.
All right, so I think you're right. Well, what do you think that? Why don't you think the other options are true? So remember, we cross those off and make sure they're not right. Why don't we think expensive is not true?
You're not gonna want to buy something if it's super expensive.
That's true, but we're talking about just the word. What does the word mean? Upscale. So why don't we believe it's expensive? The question is, do they even talk about?
They don't even talk about the price.
There you go. Does not talk about it there. They do talk about. So you just cut off the ones that are not correct, right? So that's what you do to double check that your word is correct. The fancy is, okay? So that's exactly what I wanted to hear, okay? Obviously exciting. They're not telling you that food trucks are more exciting than restaurant, right? They don't tell you that. So you just have to narrow down which ones you're picking from. So when it comes to short answers, right? I'm gonna look at the short answers. We're gonna answer one. I'm gonna answer one, then we'll answer one together, okay? And then, so let's see. So if you looked on this, based on the information in this passage, explain the modern food truck trend in your own words. So when you're doing this, right, you can write how modern food truck, right, what is it? But when you're doing this, explain from the information. When they're asking is that they want you to take information from this article and write about it, right? So I could write, because we talked about it, I could say, modern food trucks have a variety of different foods ranging from dumplings to Korean barbecue. You want to make sure that you add info, evidence that you found from the article, okay? If we did one together, so let's do number 9 together. What is your experience with these food trucks? Have you ever eaten from one? If so, what was it like? If not, would you ever consider it? Why or why not? What is something I told you guys you need to make sure you look for? Evidence, yes.
If there's a why or why not.
Yeah, if there's what?
More
multiple
than one
parts.
question.
So make sure you answer each part. What's the smart thing to do is to number each part. So you answer them all so you get all of the credit.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so if we answer this together, someone tell me, what is your experience with food trucks?
I've been to one or two.
So if you were writing this, what would you say?
My experience with food trucks is very limited.
Okay, so you've eaten that one, right?
Yeah.
And then you say, have you ever eaten that one? So then you would add, I have eaten that one.
I've eaten that one or two.
If so, what was it like? So how would you answer? Then you'd answer on and explain. So what is it like? So how was it like eating there?
It's basically like a restaurant on wheels. It was good food.
Okay. If not, would you consider it why or why not? So you made sure to answer all 3 questions, right? That's the point, is that when you see these, you don't just answer the first one, you have to answer every single one, okay? So what you guys are gonna do, because we did this one together, I wanna see if you guys can actually answer these by yourself. So you're gonna answer this real quick. It's a short assessment, and I wanna see how well you guys can answer multiple choice and use these strategies and the short answer, okay? It's not gonna take you that long. And then after this, we are going to, and in about a couple minutes, we are going to go and get your guys' little treat, okay? Yeah. You got like 3 minutes. 3 minutes, okay?